Matthew Lloyd, back again. Bill, do you see video games performing the societal role of training young men in what it means to be a man that fathers have traditionally filled? If so, what do you think boys, men are learning about masculinity from video games, good or bad? It's a profound question. They're learning violence, and to some degree they're learning cooperation. Some kids take it more seriously than others. Most of the gaming that when I watch people play a first-person shooter, I played some Counter-Strike for a while, a couple of years ago, many years ago now, I guess, almost 10. And it wasn't too bad in Counter-Strike, but let me give you an example, an analogy, Matthew. When I first heard about paintball, I thought, awesome. So we went out to this paintball thing, and when I got started in paintball, again, it's probably 1988, somewhere in there, 90, somewhere in there. When we went out to play paintball, there was like a, Big War 4, and there were something like 300 guys out there. And we were all dressed in camouflage. And we were all dressed in camouflage because we treated paintball as if it was real combat. We would move, we'd be undercover, we'd do ambushes and all the rest. And then I checked in on it again many years later, and everybody's wearing these neon colors now, because now it's not about that. Now it's about movement. It's about finessing the game rather than playing the game. And when you watch a series of first-person shooters like a Doom Room or something like that, you see people, most of them very young, who have absolutely mastered the game, but it doesn't look realistic in any way. It's they're learning. It's kind of Ender's Game, they're learning fast, and they're learning what the game limits are, which are not the same as what reality limits are. To give you a small example, it used to be possible, I guess it still is, in one of these what was it called? Team Fortress games, where you'd have a red team and a blue team. It feels kind of realistic, but one of the things that you could do if you knew exactly what you were doing, and that meant you spent a lot of time on it, you could actually take a rocket launcher and fire it into the ground below you, and it would basically propel you some distance. You had to get it just right, but it would do it, which I don't think is actually possible in real life, actually. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. So to that degree, they're not really learning anything useful there. The storylines have been routinely commented on that the storylines in video games are probably the most conservative media out there. And many years ago, I don't remember how long, at least 4, 5, 6 years ago, came a very important point, a societal point. And that was the point where they started spending more money on making a video game title than they did on making a movie, a big movie. I don't know how much money is in Star Citizen. I'd like to know. I'd love to have somebody tell me. It's all crowdfunded, all of it. But it's got to be. It's certainly tens of millions of dollars, and it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars. So, back to your question. I don't think they're learning a whole lot, which is kind of why I want to do what I mentioned earlier tonight. I kind of want. In fact, this is a big reason why I wanted to do it, and I couldn't put my finger on it until you asked me the question, Matt. I would like to show these boys, because they're most always boys, I'd like to show these boys how you would go through that world as men. I just think that'd be really interesting. Really interesting. Friendly but cautious, careful. And none of this third person, none of you looking down on yourself, walking through the world, they're just bored. Here we are, where we landed on this planet. Here's a rundown, spaceport, and it's kind of shady looking. So the 5 of us better stay together, and we'll have a pistol on our hips someplace, and you're not walking around with a pistol in your face, but at the same time you're looking around, paying attention, and having just a regular conversation. 150 million, Matt. Yeah, that's a lot of money. So that would, I think, give younger players a sense of adulthood. Now, the question is, would they find it interesting? And I suspect they probably would, because I've seen the interactive games that they do with each other, and they're terrible. People are just bunching up in the same spot, and, they're saying dumb things, and, you can hear some of these kids are like 10 years old. Look, if not, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have a good time, and I need a little R&R. I think that's it. But I don't think they certainly don't perform a role that a father would perform for them. And at this point, I have to say something. I was talking to my fiance about this, and And I thought she'd be real happy about it, you know, because she worries a little bit about me flying out in the real world. I worry about it too. That's why I'm a very safe pilot. But I was showing her this curved screen thing and all the rest of it in the games and stuff, and she said, Billy, this is not for you. You do things in the real world. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing to say. What a cool thing to say about me. So I'm not going to give up doing things in the real world. And this is kind of the point of this thing I've been hammering home all night on this show, is because I learned how to do a number of things in the real world. Hang on a second, the phone is a-ringing. Because I learned how to do a lot of things in the real world, like fly a real airplane, for example. Going into the game, my flight skills would be good, but most importantly, my language would be correct. And if you happen to be somebody who's interested in this and you spend some time in the infantry, you would know the correct way to, to clear a room. You'd know the kind of terminology. You'd know all of this. You just get it. So I think this is really actually kind of fascinating. The more I think about it, the better I like it. What I think is actually happening, Matt, is just the exact opposite of what you think. Most people would think that the flight simulators are used to prepare you for the real world. But what I'm talking about is bringing the real world into the simulation. Because watching the simulations, the interactions of the simulations, I see some people trying to get it right, but nobody gets it exactly right, with the exception of that one group I saw in Arma. Those guys were absolutely professionals. Absolutely professionals. They were terrific. So it would be interesting to because this is the world they live in, right? I mean, there's no question about that. This is not a big breakthrough observation on my part to say that young people are living in computer games. And I've spent a fair amount of time talking about how awful that is, and I'm not taking anything back about it. But with that said, since they're there, why not bring some adults into the situation? This is a profoundly good idea. The more I think about it, the better I like it. Look, it may fall flat on its face. I'm certainly willing to admit that they may find it completely boring, and I get that. But the thing that would make it interesting would be if you did the cinematic, if you directed it. And guess what? If you directed it and the camera was where it's supposed to be, and I think it would look like little movies. We're going to find out, by God. We're going to find out. So, yeah, what if we did bring some actual male man into this computer-generated world? Would it stick or not? Maybe. And if not, we're going to have a lot of fun.